It was supposed to be just another job for Yarek. He had seen it all: ruined ships, scavenger fights, shady deals. But this one felt different from the start. He walked into the metal chamber where the payment was waiting, but instead of crates or credits, they showed him her. She sat in a cage, her knees pulled up to her chest. Long silver hair hung over glowing violet skin. Her eyes stared at the floor, empty, broken, silent. Yarek blinked. "What is this?" The trader grinned, showing metal teeth. "Extra. Bonus, human. You fixed our generator, and the boss said you could have her." Yarek looked at the cage again. "I didn't ask for a slave. She's worthless," the man said. Didn't talk, didn't obey, wouldn't even cry during the auctions. The others laughed like it was funny. Yarek didn't laugh. The girl looked too thin, too quiet. But even sitting like that, she held herself with strange dignity, like she didn't belong in a cage. Yarek sighed. "Fine, I'll take her. But if this is a trick..." "No trick," the trader waved. "We're glad to be rid of her." Back on his ship, Yarek opened the cage and pointed to a small corner. "You can stay there," he said. "Just don't touch anything." She didn't move or speak, just walked to the corner and sat down again. He watched her carefully for a while. No reaction, no anger, no fear, just silence. "What's your name?" he asked. Still nothing. He shook his head and went back to the cockpit. But that night, he couldn't sleep. There was something wrong about her. Not in a bad way, but in a strange way. He checked the trade papers. No ID, no origin, just a stamp. "Confiscated property. Who are you really?" he muttered, staring at the ceiling of his bunk. The next morning, he found her quietly cleaning the ship's tools. She used no words, just gentle hands. She worked like she knew every wire, every switch, every circuit. He crouched near her. "Where did you learn this?" She paused, her fingers brushing a control panel. "From the stars," she whispered, then went back to work. That was the first time she spoke, and it sent a chill down his spine. Later, Yarek noticed something glowing faintly on her arm. Strange markings, almost like a tattoo, but alive. He scanned it quickly. The device blinked red. "No record found." That was impossible. Every slave was registered, tagged, marked in the database, but she didn't exist. Now he was sure she wasn't a normal slave. She wasn't even supposed to be sold. That night, he watched her from the shadows. She sat alone again, curled up in the corner. But this time, she pulled something from her clothes. A small crystal, shining with soft blue light. She pressed it to her lips and whispered in a strange, alien language. It wasn't a prayer. It sounded more like a message. Yarek stepped forward. "Hey, what's that?" She jumped and hid the crystal. For the first time, he saw panic in her eyes. He didn't push her, just said, "You don't have to be afraid of me." She looked away, silent again. But something had changed in the air between them. Later, as Yarek sat in the cockpit, looking at the stars, a voice came from behind him. "You should have left me there." He turned to see her standing just outside the doorway. "You talk now," he said, surprised. She nodded slowly. "You're different." "Different how?" he asked. "You didn't look at me like the others," she said, her voice soft. "You didn't ask for me. But you didn't chain me again." Yarek didn't know what to say. He just looked at her, really looked, and saw the pain behind her beauty, the strength behind her silence. "Do you have a name?" he asked again. She hesitated, then said, "Call me Virel." That name echoed in his mind. It sounded familiar, too familiar. He didn't sleep that night either, because now he had questions. And somehow, he knew the answers would change everything. Yarek woke up with a strange feeling in his chest. Something about the girl Virel didn't sit right, not in a bad way, but in a way that pulled at the edges of his thoughts. She was too calm, too graceful, too aware. No normal slave acted like that, and that name Virel, it kept repeating in his head. He sat up, walked into the engine bay, and stopped. She was already there, repairing the power conduit. Without tools, she adjusted the wiring with her bare fingers. "Where did you learn to do that?" he asked. Virel didn't look at him. This ship is old, but it speaks. That's not an answer, he said, crossing his arms. She finally turned, and for the first time, he noticed her eyes. Not just violet, they shimmered with silver. Rings, not natural, not normal. You're not a slave, are you? Yorick asked quietly. She stared at him, then said, "Does it matter what I was if no one believes it now?" He didn't reply. Instead, he went to the ship's scanner and pinged her body for identifiers. Nothing, no slave tags, no ID chip, just one strange thing, an unknown signature embedded beneath her skin. Yorick enhanced the scan and leaned in closer. There was a glowing symbol beneath her collarbone. It looked like a royal crest, but one he hadn't seen since he was a child, the Arvani Empire. Long thought to be in civil war, their royal bloodline had disappeared, but that symbol, that was their throne seal. Yorick stepped back, whispering to himself, "No way." Virel's voice was calm. "Now you see it." Later, Yorick sat in the pilot seat, his hands shaking slightly. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Virel stood beside him now, arms crossed. "I was taken," she said simply. "Sold, gagged, silenced." "By who?" "My uncle," she said. "The one who wanted the throne." The pieces started falling into place. "If that's true, you're not just anyone," he said. "You're the heir," she whispered. "Or at least I was." Yorick leaned back, looking up at the metal ceiling. Of all the things to happen in his life, this wasn't one he expected. He had a royal fugitive on his ship, and worse, he was starting to care. "I can't protect you from an empire," he said. "You don't have to," she replied. "You only need to believe I'm not lying." He looked at her again. She had no crown, no throne, no guards, but she stood taller than any queen he'd ever imagined. That night, things got worse. Yorick's ship, I beeped. "Incoming signal. Encrypted, origin unknown." He opened the message, and his blood ran cold. A bounty alert. Someone had placed a price on Virel's recovery, alive or dead. Suspected traitor, royal property, stolen biological asset, not person. Yorick's hands clenched into fists. He turned to Virel, who was already holding her crystal. "They found us," she said softly. "He's coming." Yorick ran to the console and set emergency departure codes. They had to move now. The sky outside turned red. An Empire drone ship had found them. As the engines roared, Yorick yelled, "Get in the turret. Defend the ship." But Virel didn't run. Instead, she stepped forward, touched the ship's AI interface, and began speaking in a deep, royal command code. The ship blinked, paused, then obeyed her voice. Even the AI recognized her bloodline. Alarms stopped. Shields went up and weapons activated without Yorick lifting a finger. He stared at her in shock. "How?" She looked back at him. "This ship is of Arvani make, buried under all your rust and wires." She had just unlocked its ancient power. They escaped the drone, barely, but Yorick knew it was only the beginning. If they could find her once, they'd find her again. He stood on the balcony of his ship's upper deck as stars flew past. Virel stood beside him now, no longer hiding. The wind from the ship's vents made her hair flow like silver water. "I don't want your throne," she said. "I just want to survive long enough to prove who I am." Yorick said nothing for a while. Then he nodded. "We'll find a way." She looked at him, eyes calm. "You're different from most humans I've met. I'm not sure if that's good or bad," he replied, smirking. She smiled for the first time. "It means I trust you." For the first time he believed her completely, and somewhere deep in space, someone else noticed her awakening signal. Someone who wouldn't be happy she was still alive. The alarm didn't sound. It was worse than that. The silence told Yorick something had already slipped through. The stars outside were still, too still, and the air in the ship suddenly felt heavier, like the space around them had changed. Yorick leaned forward and whispered, "We're being watched." Virel stood behind him, holding her crystal again. She had been quiet since they escaped the last drone, but now her eyes flashed with worry. They found us, she said. They always find me. Yurek didn't wait. He powered down the main engines and let the ship drift. No signals, no energy, just dead weight floating in the dark. It was a trick smugglers used to hide. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Put this on, he said. Tossing her a breathing pack, she nodded without asking questions. Outside, shadows moved across the stars. A ship appeared without warning. Like a ghost, sleek, black, shaped like a blade. Imperial assassins. They didn't speak, didn't announce themselves. They just fired. The blast shook the whole ship. Yurek jumped into the pilot's seat. That was a warning. Virel gripped the edge of the console. They won't miss the second time. Hold on, Yurek said. As he slammed the emergency launch codes, the backup thrusters kicked in, launching them forward with a violent jolt. Lasers cut past them, grazing the side of the ship. Sparks flew inside the cockpit, but Yurek didn't stop. He dove the ship straight into the debris field of a broken moon nearby. Sharp metal and asteroid. Fragments filled the path ahead. Any sane pilot would avoid it. But Yurek wasn't sane. He was desperate. Inside the field, they had seconds to hide. Switching to manual, he said, taking full control. Virel pressed her hand against the side of the ship, whispering again in that strange language. Suddenly, one of the nearby wrecks lit up with a pulse. It wasn't just a wreck, it was an old Arvani scout ship, still connected to her royal code. She reached out, syncing with it. Yurek's ship latched onto the wreck and went silent. Blending in, from the outside, they were just another piece of junk. But inside, both of them were breathing like they'd just outrun death itself. An hour passed, then two. The enemy ship finally drifted away, unable to find them. Yurek leaned back, sweat dripping from his forehead. That was close, he said. Virel nodded. Too close. He turned to her. How did you do that with the wreck? It still remembered me, she said softly. My family built many ships before they were taken from us. Yurek looked at her for a long time. She wasn't just surviving, she was connecting with ancient machines. Her bloodline wasn't just noble, it was wired into history. I need answers, he said finally. Who are you really? She took a deep breath and sat down across from him. When I was 10 cycles old, I sat on a throne made of crystal and fire. My mother ruled with wisdom, my father with strength. But power brings enemies. My uncle said I was weak, she continued. He said the galaxy didn't need rulers, it needed kings. So he staged a rebellion, slaughtered half the council, and blamed it on outside enemies. I was smuggled out in a cargo box meant for fruit. Yurek's jaw tightened. You were a princess. She looked away. I was a child. Now I'm just lost. No, Yurek said. You're still a princess, just hidden in the wrong place. They knew they couldn't stay in the wreck field forever. Yurek found an old data route on his charts, the Shadow Belt, an abandoned zone, full of dangerous paths, no patrols, no laws, and no safe harbor. But it was the one place where no one would expect them to go. Get some rest, he told Virel. She shook her head. I haven't rested in years. Then she added quietly, not since I was free. That night, while Yurek checked the navigation core, he found something new. A hologram had appeared in the logs. It showed Virel wearing ceremonial robes, standing beside the old queen. It was real, undeniable proof. She was royalty. His hands trembled. He had taken her as a slave, but she was the true heir. And now, he was the only one standing between her and death. Yurek sat alone for a while, staring into the blue light of the stars. Everything in his life had been about survival, deals, and machines. But now it was about her. Not because she was a princess, but because she was the only one who still carried hope. Hope for a broken empire. Hope for something better. He didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was clear. He wasn't just running anymore. He was protecting a future, and deep in the shadows, the Empire was preparing for war because they had seen the signal and knew the girl they tried to erase was still alive. Asterisk. The shadow belt was cold, dark and forgotten by most, but for Yarek's ship, it was now the only place left to breathe. Wrecked stations floated like ghosts, dead satellites spun slowly in the dark. No signals, no life, just silence. Inside the ship, Varel sat near the engine core, her hands wrapped around her knees. Yarek stood nearby, tools in hand, but he wasn't fixing anything. He was watching her, waiting for her to speak. "You haven't asked me what that place was," she said finally. "The throne room. I saw the hologram." Yarek answered. "I saw you beside your mother." Varel looked down. She died smiling. Even when the knives came, he didn't say anything, just slowly walked over and sat across from her. "You said your uncle did it," he whispered. She nodded. "He said the people needed a stronger voice, that the empire had gone soft. But we had peace," she continued, her voice shaking. "My father built alliances across 10 star systems. My mother signed treaties with species others wouldn't even speak to." Her eyes welled with tears, but they didn't fall. "I was supposed to learn from them. I was never meant to rule alone." Yarek leaned back against the wall. "So he used you," she nodded again. "He had me taken during a royal parade, sold in secret auction so I'd vanish quietly." Her fingers ran over the crystal pendant. "I kept this because it holds my family's blood code." Yarek stared at it. "That's why the old ships obey you." "Yes," she said softly. "They remember what I've lost." Yarek stood and walked to the console. He pulled up the bounty data again. Words like stolen asset, biological property, royal failure lit the screen. He gritted his teeth. "They don't even call you a person." "I know," Varel replied. "To them, I'm proof of their lie. If I live, the throne isn't his." Yarek turned sharply. "Then why don't we fight back?" She looked up, surprised. "Fight?" she asked. "With what?" "You're a mechanic. I'm broken." "You're not broken," Yarek said, stepping closer. "You're more alive than anyone I've ever met." For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she said, "You think I can fight an empire with words?" "No," he said, "but maybe with truth." Later in the lower deck, Yarek opened a dusty crate. Inside was a piece of tech even he hadn't used in years, an old pulse beacon. But this one had something special, a broadcast core that could reach the outer systems. He handed it to her. "You said the Empire fears you," he said. "Then give them a reason to. Tell your story, in your voice, your language." Varel hesitated. "If I do this, they'll find us." "They're already looking," he replied. "Might as well make it count." She sat before the beacon, took a deep breath, and placed her crystal beside it. A warm glow spread around them as her voice filled the room. She spoke in her people's language, calm, clear, and proud. Yarek didn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. He felt them. It wasn't just a message, it was a warning to the traitors, and a call to the lost. When she finished, the beacon pulsed and vanished into the stars. The next day, they received a message, not from enemies, but from supporters. An old Arvani general replied with just 4 words, "We heard the air." Varel stared at the message, her hand trembling. "They still remember me," she whispered. Yarek grinned. "Of course they do." But their moment was cut short. The ship's AI blinked red. Tracking signal detected. They found US, Yarek muttered. They locked on the beacon's pulse. He grabbed his blaster. "We have minutes." Varel stood up, eyes sharper now. "Then we don't run." Yarek turned to her. Shocked. "We fight," she said, "like my mother would have." They sealed the doors, powered the shields, and loaded every defense drone they had. As the enemy ship closed in, Yarek could see the insignia Royal Execution Unit. "They sent assassins," he said. "I'll face them," Varel said, walking toward the hatch. "No," Yarek said, grabbing her arm. "They'll kill you." "Not if I show them the truth," she said, raising the crystal. "This is the last royal key." Before he could argue, the ship rocked with a loud blast. The lights flickered. The air grew hot. Yarek aimed his weapon and stood in front of her. "If they want to take you, they'll have to go through me." Varel's hand touched his shoulder. "No," she said. "We go through them." The enemy ship didn't hesitate. It dropped from warp with silence. Like a blade slipping into water, its lights glowed red, and its weapons hummed softly. There were no warnings, no words. Only intention: kill the girl and leave nothing behind. Yarrick checked the weapons panel, but it wasn't enough. His ship had small defense drones and old shielding. It could never match a royal execution vessel. Still, he stood in front of her, holding a plasma rifle like it could change fate behind him. Varel held the crystal tighter than ever before. Her eyes were calm, but her breath shook. "They won't stop," she whispered. "Not until they erase me from the galaxy. Then don't give them the chance," Yarrick replied. "Use your name, your power, your code. I'm not a warrior," she said quietly. "But you're a ruler," Yarrick replied. "And right now, that's stronger." The ship shook again. The enemy had launched breacher pods, small, fast, and full of soldiers. Yarrick aimed at the hallway, ready to fire, but Varel stepped past him, toward the main control chamber. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Calling for help," she said, "from a ghost." She placed her palm on the old Arvani panel deep inside the core room. The system blinked, paused, and scanned her DNA. Then it spoke in a soft female voice. "Welcome back, High Blood, unlocking royal systems." Yarrick's eyes widened. The walls of the ship lit up in soft gold. New screens appeared, new shields activated. And beneath the floor, a hidden royal AI came online. The voice echoed again. "Emergency detected. Shall we engage defense protocol?" Varel stood tall. "Yes," she said firmly. "Protect your air." The breacher pods hit the hull, metal screamed, lights blinked, and the enemy forced its way in. Yarrick ran to the front hall, where the first soldiers stepped through the breach. Tall, armored, masked, no mercy in their movement. He fired first, the plasma hitting one in the chest, knocking it back. But there were more, and they were faster, just as Yarrick was about to fall back. The royal AI activated a defense field. Energy barriers slammed down, splitting the ship's corridors. Laser turrets emerged from the ceilings, targeting only the enemies. One by one, they fell, not to Yarrick, but to her ship. He turned back and saw Varel standing in the control chamber. Glowing lines of royal code ran up her arms like veins of light. Her eyes were shining now, her voice strong as she gave orders. "Seal all escape routes. Disable their weapons. Do not kill unless they try to kill us." Yarrick stared in awe. Gone was the quiet slave. In her place stood a leader. The enemy ship outside began charging a main cannon. If fired, it would destroy everything, including them. The eye warned. "Critical energy detected. Evacuation advised." But Varel shook her head. "No. I have one more command." She held the crystal high. "Transmit the following message to every known Arvani relic ship across this sector." The AI beeped. "Message content?" Varel spoke clearly. "This is Princess Varel Arvani," she said, her voice echoing like thunder. "I live, I command, I rise. All those loyal to the bloodline, return to me." Yarrick's mouth dropped. "You just called the dead back to life," she said softly, and outside, the stars began to change. Within minutes, energy readings spiked around them. Old ships, forgotten, hidden, sleeping in asteroid belts, suddenly came online. Dozens of small Arvani vessels awakened to her voice, and they moved, silently and quickly, toward her location. The enemy cannon powered up, ready to fire. But then 3 Arvani ships appeared behind. They weren't big, but they were fast, too fast for the enemy to lock on. The cannon fired, but it missed, and then the loyalists struck. Beams of blue plasma tore through the execution ship's shields. One by one, its engines failed. Its hull split, and finally, it drifted in silence. Yarrick sat in the cockpit, stunned. "They came for you," he said. Varel stood beside him, tears in her eyes. "No," she whispered. "They came for what was right." The royal AI spoke again. Enemy vessel disabled. Awaiting your command. Virel looked to Yarek. He nodded. Up. To you, princess. She gave the order. Spare them. Send a message. The throne is not afraid. And with that, the execution ship was left alive, but powerless. A warning to anyone who still followed the false king. Later, in the quiet of the upper deck, Yarek looked at her. You could have killed them, he said. I know, she answered. But I want them to live with the fear of knowing. I'm coming back, he smiled. You're not just a survivor anymore. No, she said softly. I'm the storm they tried to chain. Asterisk. The stars didn't feel safe anymore. Not even for a princess, not even for the truth. 3 days had passed since Virel sent her message. 3 days since she claimed her birthright and called the loyal ships back to her side. In that time, dozens of old vessels had responded. Scout ships, messenger frigates, forgotten cruisers once loyal to the Arvani throne. But with each new ally came a bigger shadow, because now the Empire knew they didn't send hunters this time, they sent a dreadnought. Yarek stared at the massive screen, eyes wide. That thing's not a ship, he muttered. It's a fortress. The dreadnought floated in orbit near a shattered moon. Its hull was black and sharp, glowing with deep red light. Thousands of smaller fighters circled around it, like insects ready to bite. Virel stood behind him, hands clenched tight. They sent it for me, she whispered. They're afraid, Yarek turned. Then they should be. You have allies. Now, I have shadows and broken fleets, she replied. And they have the storm. The dreadnought's message came without emotion, a voice cold and processed through a machine. To the one calling herself Virel Arvani. Surrender immediately. The Empire recognizes no royal blood, but the one on the throne. Virel didn't flinch. She stepped forward and spoke into the calm. This is not your galaxy to claim, she said calmly. I won't run again, Yarek stared at her. She was no longer the girl he met in a cage. She was something else now, fire and steel in royal form. But truth alone wouldn't stop missiles. The loyal ships were few and scattered. The dreadnought had weapons that could destroy entire fleets in a single volley. They needed a plan, or they wouldn't survive long enough to be remembered. Virel stood at the war table, maps flickering in light. She pointed to a small asteroid field near the edge of the system. If we pull them in here, they'll lose their maneuverability, she said. Yarek nodded. And we hit their underbelly. While they're blind, a quiet voice spoke up, an old Arvani captain who had arrived 2 days ago. You're asking broken ships to fight a god. Virel looked at him. No, she said. I'm reminding gods that even stars burn out. As the battle plan formed, Yarek went to check the weapon systems. He paused at the engine deck where Virel's crystal had been placed. It now pulsed steadily, feeding power through ancient lines he never noticed before. The ship wasn't just alive, it was awake. And it was fighting with her. Not just for her. He touched the wall and whispered, She's changing everything. The battle began before the sun rose. The dreadnought launched first, sending fighter waves like black locusts. The loyal ships moved in formation, not perfect, but determined. Virel stood in the command chamber, voice steady as she gave orders. Divide the first line, keep the fighters distracted. Send decoys to the east belt, make them think we're running. And hold the third line until my signal. Yarek flew at her side, gripping the control stick. His ship wasn't fast, but it was wired into her command now, every movement felt connected. Explosions lit the dark. One of the older ships took a direct hit and shattered into fire. Virel didn't blink. Her voice never wavered. This is for every voice they silenced, she said. This is for my mother's final breath. Then she gave the final command, release the shield breaker. Yarek slammed a button. A hidden drone flew into the heart of the dreadnought, an old royal code hidden inside it. The drone exploded not with fire, but with signal. The dreadnought's inner core blinked, confused. Its defenses paused for just 5 seconds. It was enough. The loyalists swarmed in, targeting its main energy source under the belly. One shot. Two, three. And the dreadnought's core cracked. It didn't explode. It collapsed. Powerless, floating, beaten by the ghosts it thought were dead. Virel stood in silence as the lights on the battlefield dimmed. No celebration, no cheers. Just breathing, just survival. Yarok walked to her side. "It's over," he said. She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "This was just one monster. The throne still bleeds." He looked at her. "So what now?" Her eyes locked onto the stars ahead. "Now we go home," she said. "And I take back what they tried to bury." But far away, in a palace carved of gold and smoke, a man watched the battle feed with cold eyes. Virel's face lit up the screen. Alive and strong, he leaned forward and whispered, "So, the little girl survived. She wants her throne? Then let her come for it." The royal capital of the Arvani Empire had not seen a sunrise in years. Thick smog covered its skies, hiding the stars. Once it had been a place of light and honor. Now it was a city of whispers, walls, and fear. But change was coming, and it was coming fast. Yarok stood beside Virel inside the command deck of her ship. The stars stretched endlessly before them. But her eyes were locked on one place, her home, her birthright. The loyalist fleet now numbered dozens small. Battered ships held together with courage and code. Behind her, a sea of captains waited for her voice. Some were old, some young. Many had lost everything, but today they stood behind her. Virel pressed her palm to the console, and the royal AI spoke. "Final course set. Capital planet. Arvani Prime." Yarok looked at her. "You ready for this?" Virel nodded. "I was born for this moment, but I wasn't ready. Until I met you." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace, and the capital came into view. Gray towers rose from the surface, sharp and cold, and above them, floating like a beast in chains, was the palace station. Once it had belonged to her mother. Now it was the throne of her uncle, the usurper. The Empire didn't wait to talk. The palace defenses opened fire immediately, but the loyalists were ready. They didn't fire to destroy. They aimed to disable Virel's voice filled every ship. "No more blood," she said. "This is not war. This is restoration." Yarok piloted the lead ship with Virel at his side. The fighters moved with precision, targeting turrets, power relays, and shield stations. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to take back what was stolen. The palace fell quiet within hours. Its defenses offline, its soldiers retreating. The people inside did not resist, because they had already seen her face across the stars. The truth had reached them before she did. Virel walked through the broken gates of the palace alone. No guards, no army, just her. Yarok followed closely. Behind, his weapon holstered, but his heart alert. At the top of the grand hall, the usurper stood waiting. Clad in royal armor, tall, cold, unmoved. He looked at her with a smile that held no warmth. "You finally crawled home," he said. "You brought trash ships and traitors." Virel walked forward calmly. "You ruled with fear," she said. "But fear does not last forever." He laughed, stepping down one stair at a time. "You think they'll follow you again?" "You're just a girl who got lucky." Yarok stepped forward, fists clenched. But Virel raised her hand, stopping him. She spoke to her uncle, her voice steady and sharp. "You're not worth anger. You're not even worth hate. You are finished." Behind her, the palace lights flickered as the main AI came online. It scanned her, confirmed her DNA, her royal code, her blood, and then it spoke for the entire planet to hear. Royal signature detected. Princess Virel Arvani. Throne protocol reactivated. The floor beneath her feet lit with golden light. The banners hanging above changed. Her family's crest returned. The usurper staggered back. "No. I destroyed all the bloodlocks. You forgot the one inside me," she said. "I am the last. And the first." He drew a blade in fury and rushed toward her. But Yarok stepped in this time. One quick movement, and the fight was over. The man who stole the galaxy's light fell to the ground, not with glory, but in silence. Varel stood before the throne, but she did not sit. She looked around at the faces, watching her old advisors, frightened guards, curious citizens. "I will not rule like before," she said. "I do not come to be obeyed. I come to restore balance." She turned to Yarek, and for the first time in front of everyone, she took his hand. "This man," she said, "found me in chains. He saw what no one else did. He did not ask for a reward, yet he gave me freedom. And now I offer him a place at my side, not as a servant or soldier, but as the man who reminded me I was human." Yarek blinked, caught off guard. "I just wanted to fix ships," he whispered. Varel smiled. "And instead, you helped fix a kingdom." Months passed, and peace began to bloom again. Old laws were rewritten. Forgotten worlds rejoined the fold. Children spoke the name Varel with hope, and statues were built not for war, but for memory. Varel ruled with strength, with grace, and always with Yarek at her side, not as a king, but as a symbol, a reminder that sometimes one human, one heart, and one act of kindness could change a galaxy forever.